In September 1971, the first college LGBTQ center was opened in the United States. The University of Michigan's Human Sexuality Office was a monumental achievement for the gay civil rights movement and laid the groundwork for the future of queer resource centers. Today, campus LGBTQ resource centers dedicate themselves to the success of queer students on college campuses. However, the creation of such spaces in conservative and rural areas can prove difficult. I looked into 4 college campuses to investigate students' needs and experiences within South Central Pennsylvania. This documentary will focus on Gettysburg College and the Gender and Sexuality Resource Center, Penn State Harrisburg and the Pride Organization, Wilson College and the Allies Club, and lastly, Shippensburg University and the Pride and Gender Equity Center. I implore you to keep an open mind as we take a journey through these college resource centers. It's time we eliminate the barriers of hate and open the doors of progress for the LGBTQ community. Located in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Gettysburg College is a 4-year liberal arts and sciences college. The college enrolls about 2,600 students. On its campus, the Gettysburg College Gender and Sexuality Resource Center celebrates identity and serves as a space for community, advocacy, support, learning, and resources. The GSRC aims to educate every member of the Gettysburg College campus community and make sure that they have access to learn about sexuality and gender. The center is led by Director Amanda Del Gaudio.
Our physical location is pretty large. It's one of the largest offices that I've ever worked at, just having the physical lounge space for students to actually sit and hang out. So it's a big lounge space. There's a kitchen, a full kitchen that any student can come in and use as long as they clean up after themselves. And then we have a big TV and a big couch. We have a big sectional sofa, and then we have a whole little circle seating area where we have a lot of our discussion-based programs. We have books that folks can come check out.
The center strives for a culture of support so that everyone can feel empowered and safe to be their authentic selves on campus. In addition to Amanda, there is a student staff of program coordinators and office assistants.
I am currently the only professional staff member that works full-time in the office, but my student staff, they, between all of them, our office is staffed from noon to 9 p.m. every single day. So because I am able to have so many student staff members, we're able to be open a lot longer than if it was just me here.
The GSRC also has a weekly LGBTQ discussion group for students to meet peers and build their community. Some programs and events are hosted around campus, but most programming is held in the office.
We do a lot of educational programs and social programs. We also have Harris Closet, which is a huge resource. Harris Closet is a gender-affirming clothing closet. It was originally created, it was suggested by a student actually, named Tara, who asked if we could have this resource on campus. And so now it's actually behind me, the closet door that's right behind me. It's like a 4-door closet, and there's tons of donations. So if folks want to donate clothing, they can come to my office and drop it off, and then we clean it and organize it. And then any student is able to come. Sometimes if they just want to come and play dress up and experiment with different gender expressions that they might not have access to try before, but they're welcome to keep any of the clothing in the closet for free. So that's a huge resource that we see well utilized.
Amanda also does trainings for offices throughout the campus. The trainings range from pronouns to LGBTQ support to gender and sexuality breakdowns. The history of the GSRC begins about 30 years ago when the Women's Center was opened. It was primarily a student-run small office that operated similar to a club but with a physical office space.
Over time, it was a lot of different iterations of hiring part-time folks to oversee the area, or folks who already had jobs on campus, but then also just added the Women's Center to their responsibilities.
About 7 years ago, LGBTQ Life came about. This was another smaller program that didn't quite have a home, and it was run by staff members and student volunteers. The Women's Center and LGBTQ Life ran as 2 separate offices while sharing one physical space.
And that really wasn't working as well as students really wanted it to. They really wanted to have a dedicated person to be overseeing the whole area. So in June of 2021, so this past June, I was hired as the very first full-time director that oversaw both the Women's Center and LGBTQ plus life.
Students were surveyed about what the newly created center should be called, and GSRC was the top vote.
Everybody has a gender and sexuality. Everybody can learn about gender and sexuality. And while our focus is to support students who identify in underrepresented communities, we still want to make sure that the rest of campus feels like they can come and learn how to be an ally, how to be an advocate, to explore their own gender and sexuality, whether it's underrepresented or not, but just to learn things that they haven't before. So that felt like a name that was more overall encompassing.
The GSRC receives adequate funding and is open each day of the week. In previous years, the office was only open from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., but now hours have been expanded from noon until 9 p.m.
So yeah, I think the limitation with staffing is that I am the only full-time professional, and that is tricky because like if I'm out sick one day, like it's just my students here, so that's always a concern. With funding, I think funding is always hard. I've held a few positions at various different institutions, and funding, just especially through COVID, has been really challenging, where colleges are just having to really look at their funding really carefully, because we might be losing money through COVID.
Knowing there is a set budget, Amanda prioritizes paying student workers and having employment opportunities for them.
I really wanted to make sure that we are able to have student employees because peer-to-peer connection is really important, I think, when talking about identity. Just me as a millennial, talking to a Gen Z student, like there's not a huge gap, but there's a little bit of a gap, enough of a gap that I'm still not a peer. I'm still an administrator. I'm still somebody who works at the college. So I think that peer-to-peer, I think that's worth the significant financial investment that we're putting out.
The GSRC is located on the first floor of Apple Hall, a residence building on campus.
I think there's both pros and cons of our location. I think a huge pro is it is pretty close to like the main campus where everything else is. We are right behind the College Union building, which we often call the Cub, and that's pretty close to like the center hub of campus. So physically in proximity, it's easy.
Gettysburg College bought pre-existing family houses and converted them into campus offices. The original Women's Center was in one of these houses, and it was not very accessible because of its stairs. The current location for the GSRC is on the first floor of Apple Hall, making it much more accessible. The location also has a large space, which is great for programming, but with these perks come disadvantages.
I think the con is that a lot of students don't know we're here because we're kind of like tucked away in this corner of a residence hall. Even on the outside of the building, there's no indication of where our office is. So it can be a little tricky to find. And I think that's our biggest challenge right now with our location is just kind of getting the word out of where we're actually located. But once they're here, it's great. It's just getting students to actually come in and find our space.
Gettysburg College also offers gender-inclusive housing with Q House. Q House raises awareness about LGBTQ plus issues both at Gettysburg and around the world.
But it's for any student who requests it, who just wants a safe space for LGBTQ plus folks to be able to live. And that's really important, especially as an incoming student coming in and having to have difficult conversations with your roommate about identity or not maybe feeling like you're automatically accepted or welcome. I think it's really important to have a resource where somebody can come in and automatically know like this is a place where they're going to be accepted and safe, and there's going to be a sense of community there.
Q House goes beyond gender-inclusive housing to discuss social justice issues and queer life on campus. The students in Q House actively plan programs together, and many are members of the OQS organization, which stands for Out Questioning Straight.
That used to be Prism a few years ago, but during COVID, everyone in the club graduated, and so they had to create a new club. So a lot of Q House's programs and the club's programs go really hand in hand because they're trying to get as many people in the community sort of socially involved and just like creating that community space.
Q House always has an open door for any students that may feel threatened due to their identity. This helps create an atmosphere of safety and inclusion.
I think gender inclusive housing, I think every college should have gender inclusive housing. That's something that is such a hard thing to navigate as like a queer and trans person who is trying to navigate their gender and trying to and be being put into a box or a space that they're not necessarily comfortable.
The Gettysburg College Gender and Sexuality Resource Center will continue to evolve to meet the needs of students.
I think we continue to grow, and I think we'll always continue to grow because I think as we look at data from like the Trevor Project and from other like big national organizations, we're seeing that the percentage of students who identify as LGBT plus is growing, maybe because there's more visibility and more talking about identity, but that number is growing every single time we have an incoming class. There's more and more LGBT students. So yeah, I think we're always going to grow with, the need.
Located in Lower Swatara Township, Penn State Harrisburg is a comprehensive undergraduate and graduate school only 8 miles from Harrisburg. Penn State Harrisburg serves as a Commonwealth campus of the Pennsylvania State University, and roughly 5,000 students are enrolled across over 160 majors. As a Commonwealth campus, Penn State Harrisburg does not have a physical location for an LGBTQIA+ resource center. Instead, students have formed the Pride organization.
So Pride at Penn State Harrisburg it's our representative organization for our LGBTQIA+ student population. And additionally, we also connect with faculty, staff, and other community members. And the organization is open to both those that identify as LGBTQIA+ and also allies.
We seek to support and raise awareness about and provide events for any LGBTQIA+ students and allies all throughout campus, as well as work with organizations within Central PA and branch out and make those groups aware of our existence and give students opportunities to find support on and off of campus.
Our plan is to next years in the fall we will be continue to host other social events as well as plan other community events that are open to anyone at Penn State Harrisburg to attend, whether it be inviting a speaker onto campus to talk about issues relating to the LGBTQIA+ community, or we might plan a trip to someplace, or possibly having a pride prom or something, just to give a few examples.
Pride at Penn State Harrisburg had been inactive since 2019, but the organization regrouped in January of 2022 and now has a full e-board.
I'm only a sophomore, so the whole time that I've been at Penn State, it has been Pride at Penn State Harrisburg, or in an active version of Pride at Penn State Harrisburg. But I know that this time around, this rekindling of the organization started because when Evan Williams first came to campus, he went to the involvement fair in the fall and he noticed that there wasn't a table for the Pride organization, and he was like, what's up with that? So he asked around and found out that the organization was inactive. And then honestly, the drive to get the club active again was from him. He was organizing signups and socials and really doing some serious legwork to make sure that there was a Pride organization on our campus. So as far as what I'm aware of, that's all thanks to Dr. Evan Williams that we are back.
We just recently relaunched it. Right now for this semester, we're just hosting social hours just so students can get to know each other. And right now we've grown the email list that I have of members is about 50 people. So which is really great to see that amount of, coming off of, the organization being inactive and there not really being a lot of members to now we have a huge roster, which is fantastic. So right now, just kind of getting acquainted with one another. In the fall, we will start to have some events, particularly October and April are key months we want to have events planned, because October is LGBTQ+ History Month, and April is, I believe they call it a Campus Pride Month. So that's where probably in April we would want to have something like a Pride Prom, so that people can kind of have that experience at the college level that they maybe didn't have in high school. These different events that we can connect as a community, but then also represent what it means to be a part of the LGBTQIA+ community to our entire campus.
Pride at Penn State Harrisburg seeks to make the campus a safe place for all LGBTQIA+ students. The organization faced its first major challenge earlier this semester when a hate group used First Amendment rights to spread hate on campus.
As a queer woman myself, and then my partner is a person of color, we were kind of just like hanging around at this scene, like just, babysitting as much as we could or helping people that clearly needed it. And we had a class at like 2:30 that day, and it was like around 2:00, and our professor comes like bursting out of the Olmsted building, just like so angry, and he comes over to us and he's like, I am canceling class, like I'm going to the dean's office right now, like I'm going to get this resolved. And it was just like there was a fire in his eyes, and he fully canceled class. He brought it up in class. Like the next day I had professors talk about it. So it was just like, even though it was a really awful thing, just like the level of awful that those people were pushed so many people who may have been silent on the issue, or maybe who never completed like the LGBTQIA training to get like the safe space stuff. It pushed so many people to be like, that is unacceptable, and to voice their support. So honestly, I feel more accepted and supported than ever, just because so many professors and so many just advisors and figures stepped up to be like, we are not letting this happen again, despite different policies. We are going to try to change things.
Penn State Harrisburg has a Diversity and Educational Equity Committee, and its mission is to create a safe community on campus that respects diverse perspectives. In August 2021, Dr. Wanda B. Knight became Penn State Harrisburg's first Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. When asked if there should be a physical LGBTQIA+ resource center on Penn State Harrisburg's campus, Kayla and Jeremy expressed their satisfaction with the Pride organization.
Honestly, I would always love the space, and I'd always love the organization too. I don't see why we couldn't have both eventually. It's just going to take some of us to like create that space. I do wish that we had access to like a larger organization, like Penn State Maine has the CDCD or whatever their acronym is. I'm not familiar, but I sort of wish we had something like that, just because it would aid in like the support of like myself or other students. But I don't think that we're missing out on the support, because we have other things in place like this organization and just like different things.
Now that we have an active student organization, I would say yes, that those needs are being met. And I think really, when we didn't have an organization, I think not having that representation, oftentimes would students' voices that are part of that community would not be heard. And there has been a number of students who have expressed that they're so happy now to actually have a space on campus where they feel truly accepted. So, which makes me just thrilled to hear that. And, I'm glad to be working with the team of people that can actually foster that brave space on our campus. So, that being said, now that we do have that presence and we're going to be increasing our representation on campus, I definitely see our, the concerns any of us might have about any, whether it's relating to the LGBTQIA+ community or some other group. I think we are very well represented now. And I imagine as we keep growing that, any needs that we have will continue to be met at the university level.
Located in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, Wilson College is a private liberal arts college that offers over 30 undergraduate majors as well as master's degrees. The college has an enrollment of roughly 1,600 students. Similar to Penn State Harrisburg, Wilson College does not have a physical location for an LGBTQ+ resource center. Instead, the Wilson College Allies Club supports LGBTQ+ students on campus.
So the Allies Club is definitely one of the key clubs of Wilson. I mean, it really just brings together what the college is all about, how inclusive it is, and everything like that. Some of the things we do, we really just create a safe space for students here on campus and faculty. We really just want to make sure that different members of the LGBTQ community can come together and just have a great time. We have a lot of game nights. We have a lot of different poetry nights. We even have some history nights about history of the LGBTQ community. So it's definitely a great way to get involved here on campus and to just let everybody know that they have a safe space and a lot of safe people to talk to.
We're really trying to start like from the ground up again with the club, because we really took a hit with COVID. We lost, I think, most of our officers. I think I was the only one who didn't graduate at that point. So really, I'm just trying to get a whole bunch of like underclassmen together to kind of like build it up before I graduate and see what we can do with like the different professors and other clubs on campus, and just kind of leave it so that I know we're in a good place and see how it goes in the future.
The Allies Club consists of roughly 12 to 15 individuals who aim to bring about awareness of diverse voices. Wilson College was founded as a women's college, but the Board of Trustees voted to make the college co-ed in 2013. The Allies Club has changed over the years, and it had its beginnings before the school became co-ed.
Wilson College used to be all female, and it's very old college at this point. And I just know, I think the club started before we went co-ed. So it was originally supposed to be for like women and like non-binary people who like could have that common space.
We're really looking to get more involved in the community. We definitely want to do Pride Month in the community here in Chambersburg. We definitely want to get in touch with LGBTQ organizations in the community and maybe do some things with them, maybe for local shelter in need, anything like that. We're definitely looking to get into that, but as of right now, we're definitely doing a lot of things together just as a group, and also with our President Wes Fugit. He's very involved with the Allies Club, and we've reached out to him, and we're just planning a lot of great things.
Wilson College is led by Dr. Wesley R. Fugit, who made history when he became the 20th president of the college.
I'm in the unique situation of being the first openly gay president of Wilson College. And so in that respect, I'm probably more involved than previous presidents may have been. You need to know first that I began my presidency on January 1 of 2020. So my entire worldview of student organizations and student activities at Wilson is through the lens of a pandemic. And so it's not quite as robust as it would normally be.
So President Fugit was actually just deemed our new president of Wilson College. And him and his husband live here on campus in the Sharp House. So he is a part of the LGBTQ community. So one of his goals, as I have spoken with him, is to really outreach this Allies Club and make it known here on campus and in the community. So he is just so supportive. He has attended every one of our open discussion forums. He is extremely responsive. I mean, he's involved with every single club here on campus, but especially the Allies Club. It makes him tickle, like how big the club has gotten, and he definitely makes it known, and it's just awesome to know that we have the president of the college's support. So we're definitely super grateful to have such a awesome president here at Wilson, but he's definitely very involved. He's an amazing supporter of the Allies Club.
LGBTQ plus students at Wilson have a strong network of support, especially from its faculty members.
Definitely, like, faculty and staff will support you 100%. They don't care what you look like, who you are. It's, you're there, you're a Wilson College student, like, they're there to help you.
We here at Wilson, for clubs, you have to have certain faculty advisors, and they are some of the most supportive, like, outgoing, outreaching people I've ever met. They want to be involved in Allies Club, and since it was such a smaller club before, the club really was not doing anything with staff members, faculty, even reaching out to different schools like this. And I think staff and faculty are definitely very supportive of the Allies Club.
I've said to our students, how are the ways that I can support you as a president? And then how can I support you as a gay president? And those are potentially two different things. So we've gotten a good relationship, and they haven't really given me a lot of things that they want to see. I mean, in a good way. A lot of the feedback from them has been our campus is very welcoming and supportive. I was glad to hear that. And I feel that as a gay man, that was never an issue. In fact, when the Board of Trustees hired me, they said, it didn't come up, nobody cared. And I disclosed that from the very beginning, because frankly, I didn't want to be at a campus that wasn't going to allow for me to be successful. That's not good for me or for the campus.
Dr. Fugit created the President's Commission on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Fugit is working with administration to implement a pronoun policy as well as a preferred name policy.
Because when I arrived at the institution, we did not have a diversity office in any form or fashion. But we have now developed an Office of Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, which encompasses all forms of that work. And so one of the projects for that person has been to work with our IT folks, registrar's office and others on campus, to make sure that we have a pronoun policy that not only supports the identity of a student, but hopefully, and I should say not just pronouns, but also name, preferred name, that will not put a student in harm, particularly around if documentation is going to a parent, that we hopefully can find a way. Now that gets very complicated, and you probably understand this, but the systems don't like multiple names. And so we're always cautious about a name going home to a parent that might put a student's safety at risk, versus a name that the student wishes to use on campus. And so we're working towards that. That is not an easy implementation process on any college or university campus, but we want to try to make as much progress as we can.
Because Wilson College has a smaller enrollment of on-campus students compared to Penn State Harrisburg or Shippensburg University, creating a staff specific to an LGBTQ+ resource center would be much more challenging. Despite this, LGBTQ+ Wilson students are grateful and fulfilled with the Allies Club.
Well, with being from Shippensburg, this is a very rural area, and sometimes it can be super hard to find like-minded people. And so, just having that, we usually meet twice a month, having those meetings of people who are like me or similar to me just definitely makes me feel at ease. And it's just okay, I can be myself. I can do what I want, say what I want, because these people aren't going to judge me because they're in the same boat too.
But of course, there's always room for improvement. There's always some way to make the campus more diverse and more educated, like I had mentioned about the LGBTQ community. So there's always work to do, but I do feel like the Allies Club is extremely supportive here, and students and faculty are definitely very open here. So it definitely does help a lot to have such a supportive campus.
Located in the Cumberland Valley, Shippensburg University is a comprehensive college that offers bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degree programs. With a student population of around 7,000 students, Shippensburg is a member of the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. On its campus, the Shippensburg University Pride and Gender Equity Center strives to make the institution an equitable and inclusive environment for LGBTQ+ students. The center offers a wide variety of resources and has a physical space with a TV, couches, and computers.
So the Page Center is one of the facilities at Shippensburg. It's actually a new facility because it's the Women's Center and our Pride Center combined. So we've had a lot of new things that we've learned and adjusted to recently. But with the Women's Center, they did a lot of work already with the Pride Center. And so combining that has made our resources stronger, which is super great. We have events. We do individual counseling as well as group counseling, including some survivors groups, and we also do like queer conversations and a whole bunch of events. And we also have other health and wellness supplies that are available for students to grab at any point in time.
We also do a variety of training and educations around LGBTQ 101, trans and non-binary, how to use pronouns, as well as healthy relationships. We give them to classes or any outside community organization that might want it. We do queer conversations, which can look like different topics. We had bi erasure and how Disney uses queer baiting in a variety of their movies and TV shows as of recently. We do support groups. We have trans and non-binary Tuesdays every other Tuesday, and then also a survivor support group that happens every Tuesday as well. We have just a variety of just random events. We had an abortion teaching yesterday where we had some professors talk about the different policies going on with abortion and access to it. We also host drag shows once a month where we have outside drag queens come in. We will be doing future events like that where we have students come and perform in drag as well. And then we also have just a bunch of fun game and karaoke nights just for our students to come out and relax after studying, homework, just to come out and have fun with their peers.
Prior to 2017, Shippensburg did not have a permanent location for a Pride Center. Instead, faculty created the LGBTQ+ Concerns Committee to provide services to queer students. This was unsustainable, and the committee was vocal about it.
Yeah, so that was a labor of love, but also like super hard work and a lot of advocacy from the LGBTQ+ Concerns Committee, which was chaired by Dr. Jaylene Galarza and Dr. Nicole Santalucia. They and their colleagues on that committee had fought for a long time for just really simple things on campus, like a preferred name policy and gender inclusive bathrooms, just like real basic things. And then the big push was for the Pride Center. I mean, prior to like 2018-ish, there was no designated center on campus for LGBTQ+ students.
And I think that in the beginning there was some appeasement, right? Like, let's have a room. So, okay, we'll give you a center. Here's a room in the Cub, and we'll give you a GA. And that's better than nothing, but it's not a center. And so again, we formulated a plan how to really have folks take this seriously. And so, because no other center at that time, like the Women's Center MSA, I mean, they had staff, they had a functioning space, and this center that they were giving us, it was literally a room, and a GA who did not have enough hours to like really be there, and do what the center needed to do.
By 2018, the Pride Center had been established on campus. In 2021, Alethea Zamantakis became director of the Pride Center and greatly expanded the center's impact on campus. The director position became vacant when Alethea left Shippensburg in 2021, and a realignment was made with the Women's Center by spring of 2022.
So I was director of the Women's Center for 3 years, and one of the things I heard frequently from students was that students who identify as male did not feel like the Women's Center services were for them, which of course is not true, but it's perfectly understandable why they would think that, because we were called the Women's Center. So we did try to make a point to let everyone know that our services are available for everyone, but we thought it really doesn't address what we do anymore, because gender issues, as we have learned more about gender over time, we know that gender doesn't just affect women in negative ways. There are also negative consequences for men relating to gender roles and how gender influences how we live our lives. And then for the Pride Center, because it's a relatively new service at the campus, we wanted to really strengthen it, make sure that it had longevity, and that it became more of an institutionalized part of the campus. So we thought the best way to do that is to change the name of the Women's Center and combine it with the Pride Center. We do so much work already together. There's a lot of collaboration and we have similar goals. So it just made sense to combine the two, and it really, now the name and the center are more aligned with our goals of serving everyone on campus and not just, people who identify as LGBTQ plus or people who identify as women. So we're here for everyone.
While change is never easy, the merge was met overall with positivity from students.
I believe things have changed for the better. When I was an intern at the Pride Center, we were also in times of COVID. We currently have a lot of students who come and hang out in the space, and I remember when I was an intern, we maybe had 2 or 3 consistent students come, because while they did feel safe in the center, they didn't feel safe from COVID. So the campus was still having issues with masking, and they just didn't feel safe coming on campus in general with people being vaccinated. We did have events at the Pride Center when I was an intern. I believe that we're having more events now that there's more students showing up to events. It was always very disappointing when we would plan events and no one would actually show up. We did do a queer sex ed when I was at the Pride Center, and unfortunately only 1 student came, so it is a very nice turnaround that we can do this once a month and get a consistent about 20 students come or more. I think it has changed for the better, because after COVID, we now have all these ideas that we came up with during COVID that we can now reestablish, as well as bringing events over from the Women's Center and being able to host 50 events a month and have a great turnout for each one.
So I think overall it was a positive change. I do think there are some things that we're working out. One, because we went from 2 centers to 1, so combining, making sure things are balanced. We also we lost somebody in our facility who went somewhere else. So we went from having 2 coordinators to 1 for a majority of the semester. So that also puts a lot of pressure in a different way. But I think overall it's been a really good experience combining the 2. We've done a great job of kind of keeping a balance as well as intersecting both the women's issues as well as LGBTQ plus issues, and the intersection between how some of those things overlap and the importance of working together on those. And I think we're doing a decent job with that, and I think as we continue to grow, it'll just get better.
One issue that the Page Center faces is the new addition of a Chick-fil-A on campus. The restaurant was added in fall 2021 in the same building as the Page Center.
Well, it's a huge issue. And, we've had folks, formerly part of the Pride Center, now Page Center, students who have really expressed a lot of concern about this, as well as faculty and staff. Why this is an issue is because of what Chick-fil-A has done historically and still to this day, that actually funnels money into organizations that are actively working against LGBTQ plus policies, and even as far as donating to organizations that internationally have funded really homophobic, transphobic policies. And so it's domestic, but it's also international. So Chick-fil-A itself isn't doing this, the work, but they're, as we were talking about, money speaks. And so the money that and where they put that in terms of their charitable donations are contributing to organizations that make it unsafe.
As of now, I have heard some students complain about it. I don't know of any protests per se, but there's definitely been student complaints that have gone up the chain. And the LGBTQ advisory board has been very active in, asking for it to be removed from campus, or for some sort of compensation to be given to queer students who may be harmed by it being here.
We did have a queer conversations session around Chick-fil-A where we were able to have a good hour of productive conversation around why some students feel that Chick-fil-A shouldn't be here, why they shouldn't bring it into the center, and other students who were defending how they do get Chick-fil-A as well, even though they are queer as well. It's kind of a mixture of conversation at this point. I know at first it was all very, very upsetting, and unfortunately we did have to make our peace with it. That is not stopping us from continuing this conversation with other students down in the food area. And hopefully in 7 years, once the contract is about to expire, we can inspire others to have this contract not be executed again and put in a food place that all students will want and make feel safe.
Despite the difficulties imposed by Chick-fil-A, students enjoy the location of the Page Center. Housed on the top floor of the Setia Union Building, or CUB for short, the Page Center is in a convenient spot on campus.
I believe that the center is very accessible. We are in one of the busiest buildings on campus. I know some clubs and organizations are kind of tucked away into some older buildings. While we are not out front in front of everybody, we are still in a very busy location. So even students who might come up here for a meeting in one of the other rooms, they walk by and they're like, oh, we didn't know we had this safe space for LGBTQ students and allies where they can get, like I said before, free contraceptives. They can have conversations they might have had in the past at high schools. I think it is very beneficial to be open. We do have a very confidential policy, so if you want to talk about hard things, we will close a door in, say, me or Ariel's offices. We have 2 open spaces. If they need to have a conversation, we'll close those as well. When we host our support groups, we close the door to make sure that there is no interference. I think our building is also very accessible. We have handicap entrances downstairs, and we also have a functional elevator, which you do not need to have a key for like other buildings on campus. So if we ever do have a student who has a disability and might not be able to use the stairs, they can easily come up and access the center, which is why I appreciate that we have a big open space, and it really pops out that we are here, we're not hidden, and if anyone comes by and didn't know we were here, they would definitely notice us.
Whether they're alone or whether people are in there, no matter what, it's safe, it's comfortable, there's always great conversation. If you need feedback, there's feedback from educated people, which is great, or people who've been in that situation, so they can be like, hey, this is what I did. There's also resources galore, which is super nice. But it's honestly one of the biggest takes I've had this year of being more active at the Page Center. Definitely, as I've been on campus, I've never really seen people just nap in places, and people feel comfortable enough to come into the Page Center, get on the couches, and knock out like they're asleep. And how, think about it, how vulnerable you are in that position where you're sleeping and who's around you. People are walking in, but everybody's safe. There's no fear about that, which is so great.
The Page Center currently has 2 paid positions, with Ariel Catron as the director and Sahara McGrath as the coordinator. While any resource center could always use more funding, the Page Center has been able to sustain itself with adequate hours and funding.
Yeah, so I think staffing wise, we're in a decent place. We have the director, we have a coordinator now who just got hired. There are GAs, and there were work study students and interns, and so it's very packed. In terms of full-time staff, though, there is 2 full-time staff. So I think that works for now. I always have visions of things can always be better, and I think that for all the centers that are focused on minoritized populations, right? So I think things could be better, but they've definitely improved.
Given that none of this existed even 4 or 5 years ago, I think we've come pretty far, and I'm happy with how well we've been embraced by the university, and we make do with what we have, and we stretch the dollar pretty far, and I think students are pretty well served by what we have, but of course we always want more. So
the Shippensburg University Page Center has come a long way from a decade ago, and the center will continue to adapt and evolve to meet the needs of the student population.
I really hope that our center can inspire other colleges to create some. Doing some of my personal research, there are some schools in the Apache system that unfortunately do not have any Pride centers. I really hope that we can collaborate with them in the future to help their students feel safe and maybe feel noticed. I think that they are a staple on every campus that you come to, and it can be a very big deciding factor if students attend that university depending on the population that they are going to.
So I feel like the space that we've created does provide like a safe, welcoming environment for students on campus if they're looking to find community or make friends or share space with like-minded students. I think we do a good job of that. I think we need to increase our campus advocacy as far as things like we still have professors or faculty who don't respect student pronouns or don't respect, when a student says, please don't use this name, use this name. We have students or professors who won't respect that. So we have some more advocacy work we need to do. And then getting the word out about our services because this is still like a new center. The merger is new. People are still learning about it. So I think we just need to do a little bit more promotion. But I think overall we're doing as much as we can with the capacity that we have right now. But there's always room to do more.
Gettysburg College, Penn State Harrisburg, Wilson College, and Shippensburg University are only 4 of the hundreds of college LGBTQ+ resource centers across America. While each location had its own unique qualities, there was a shared message of equity and inclusion.
I think community building is really important to be able to find folks who identify similarly to you. I think isolation is never good for anyone who has an identity where they feel like no one else feels the same way that they do. And then finding community gives that support that, is, I think, first and foremost, as the most important thing that a campus can do is being able to connect students to be able to talk about their shared experiences. I think every student can benefit, no matter their identities, because they're going to go into the workforce and they're going to understand how to be a more inclusive person, how to talk about gender in a way that is accurate and inclusive. And I think without that, that's just a really sad resource to not be able to have access to.
In my opinion, a safe space is like somewhere where you can go, but not just like go and you're protected because it's got rules but like because the people around you respect you. And there's not a lot of places in this world like as a whole where you can have that. And it's great to be able to know that like if I'm having a bad day, I could come in here and just be like, I'm having a bad day, and then I plop down and people go, well, do you want to talk about it? Would you like to, do you want to just be left alone? And you can make that decision and people respect it. And I think that's so important.
Having these organizations on campuses really creates, I feel like, a safer environment, because I can walk around our campus and know that if I ever have any kind of concerns, harassment, I have this safe space of peers and staff that I can go to for extra support, and I hope that other students feel the same way on that.
It's important to have a center like this so that when a high schooler from Shippensburg who's never met another gay person, they can come to campus and they can find community. That is part of their educational experience as well, because not only are they learning in the classroom, but they're learning about their community, about the people that care for them, and about how to navigate life as a minoritized person. So we're providing, a holistic education by having this center here, and also just showing students that they are just as important as everyone else.
College is academic, but it's so much more. We have to look at it holistically because folks stay when they feel connected to a community, and these centers offer that. And so, it's really great that now I'm in this position now teaching for a state university in the same system. And to have this and see that something like this is being offered to folks that I didn't really have too much of when I was, in college. So you want to give to the next generation the things that you didn't always have so much of.
It provides a sense of belonging. It provides a space for students who, frankly, aren't sure how they may describe themselves, to explore and ask questions and not feel judged. They are places that help with retention of those students. It's actually true that gay men are the most likely group of students to persist through college. I don't know if you know that, but we have a very high success rate. These centers help provide a tool to help make sure, as I like to say, for undergraduate students, that they get across the stage in 4 years or less, prepared for a meaningful life of work and service.
So many people travel away from home and feel like they can truly be their true selves. So having a college that has all the gender equality posters everywhere, pride flags everywhere, just screaming equality for everything, it's just makes such a difference. This is a home away from home where you are truly by yourself and you can truly evaluate yourself and really become your true self. And I think that is why having a safe space as an Allies Club, as a GSA club, is so important.
We can't just go to our parents for support, or if something happens, we can't talk to family. So, the next best thing would be a counselor or just someone who's designated to just be there for us, who knows our problems and what we go through, and is just there to listen and provide some help.
Representation is so huge. You have to take that step and continue that walk, towards progress. We have to continue that, and the only way to do that is to, foster those spaces and, just take that step, really.
People have a tendency to say life's not fair, so then make it fair. So give people these spaces where they can come together and connect and understand each other. That's the way to heal a community. And that's what we have to do to these communities that have been damaged.
As of March 2019, there are still 8 states with no college LGBTQ+ resource centers. 9 states only have 1 resource center statewide. While we have seen great progress since the 1970s, the work has only just begun.